suppose X represents the quantity of items produced and sold. Okay, the price demand function P of X calculates the price per item. The revenue function R of X calculates the total money collected by selling X items at price P. So we're going to say little p is the price. Okay, little p is the price. R of X is determined by taking the number of items times the price. The cost function calculates the cost to produce X items. C of 0 is called the fixed costs or startup costs. That's like if Keithan wanted to start a snow cone business. He would have to buy all his supplies first and the equipment, and he's made no money yet. So he's going to have some initial startup costs that he's going to want to cover, make money to cover so that, and at that point when he brings in enough revenue that he's covered his costs, he's going to have to pay employees, he's going to have to pay supplies down the road. So every time you cover those costs every month and those startup costs, everything after that is going to be profit. But you have to calculate these fixed costs or startup costs. The fixed costs are kind of the monthly expenses. The startup costs might be what it is to start your business. The average cost function, which we use was C bar. Okay, everybody look here. C bar, it's a bar above the C, is taking all your costs and dividing by the number of items. And then that's what it costs. So if you ever went on Shark Tank, they would ask you, what are your average costs? What does it cost you to produce one item? Okay, you would want to know that. You don't go on the Shark Tank without knowing how to communicate some of these things. They want to know, how much does it cost you to produce one item? And then what are you selling it for? What's your price? And then the difference between the price and the cost per item, the average cost, that's called your margin. Okay, and they want to know what your margins are. Okay, what's your markup? What are you going to make? Okay, so you take C of X divided by X. It calculates the cost per item when making X items. Here, we necessarily assume that X is greater than 0, which means we're assuming that we can't produce negative number of items. Like, we're only going to use positive values to talk about how many items we're producing. That makes sense. When you count, you don't use negative numbers. The profit function, please pay attention. Okay, the profit function calculates the money earned after costs are paid when X items are produced or sold. So P of X is calculated by taking R minus C. Now, we learned how to do that yesterday. R minus C just simply means take R of X minus C of X. We learned how to do that notation yesterday. F plus G, F minus G, F times G, F divided by G. So R minus C represents R of X minus C of X. All right, let's do our first example. Here we go. All right, we're going to let X represent the number of dopey media players. Okay, obviously we don't have dopey media players. That'd be pretty dopey because everybody just has a phone now. Just plays their music off their phone. Does anybody remember MP3 players? Yep. Does anybody remember anything called the Zune? It was one of the first MP3 players. It was about when you were born. And you could get a Zune, and then Zune got taken out by what?
Is it like
the iPod? Yeah. The iPod. The iPod ruined Zune. Zune was Microsoft's because when I was in college, we were downloading music for free online using a thing called Napster. Does anybody know what Napster is? I had Napster in college. We were downloading like thousands of songs a day. And we weren't downloading it over Wi-Fi because Wi-Fi wasn't a thing yet. So I hooked my computer into the telephone line, which was called a T1 line. And it was just data running through a telephone line. And then we would download songs. And people were downloading songs illegally onto their computers using Napster. And they were called MP3s. And then, so Microsoft came out with MP3 players. So you could buy an MP3 player and put your songs on these portable devices called MP3 players. One of the first one was called the Zune. And then Zune got taken out because then Steve Jobs created the iPod. And then you had the iPod, you had the iPod Mini, you had the iPod Shuffle. But then he said, let's just revolutionize this thing, carry our music in our pocket, and combined it with our phone. So he came out with the first iPhone, the first smartphone, which revolutionized everything we do now. All right. So let's like X represent the number of dopey media players. Dopies, produced and sold in a typical week. Suppose the cost in dollars to produce dopies is given by the function C of X is equal to 100X plus 2,000 for X greater than or equal to 0. I'm going to have one of these on the test, and there's going to be this many parts. Okay? Oh, yeah, 100% every year. It's the last problem of the test.
Is this test all hour long?
You get the whole hour and no more time.
No more than that?
It's timed. Okay? Don't worry, I make them realistic. Okay? Oops. Why does it do that all the time? Dumb thing. Stupid. Where's it at? Where's it at? Where's it at?
That's way young.
Right there. Right there. Okay, here we go. So we got C of x is equal to 100x plus 2,000 for x greater than or equal to 0. And the price in dollars per dopey is given by little p, everybody little Kim. All right, little p of x is equal to 450 minus 15x. And these functions, both the cost function and the price function, only apply from 0 to 30. So how many dopies are we going to make? Between what?
0.
So this must be like the most crazy media machine ever. Okay? They're only making 30 of them. Or your business is really, really small. Okay? Brody's got just a side gig here going on. He's selling dopies at school. Okay? If Ryan catches him, he might think it's a little tragic. But anyway, so 0 to 30. 0 to 30. Okay? That is our domain. So we're only going to worry about answering questions that are between 0 to 30. All right, here we go. Part A, we're going to find and interpret C of 0. So I'm going to do each one of these. Now, it's nice because you're actually given, I'm going to erase all this. I'm going to kind of circle the main things I need. I need this. I need little p. And I need to know the domain is from this. So these are the three most important things I need from the word problem. Be able to highlight or underline or circle what is the most important parts of the problem. Everything else is just filler. Okay? It's just filler. Or you can think of it as like the window dressing, the garnish. It's there. It's great. Makes the problem look better, but it's not very necessary. I don't care that they're doping machines. It could be whatever. Okay? All right. Find and interpret C of 0. Well, that's simple. We're just going to plug 0 in for the cost. And when we plug in, what did I say on the previous page? What does C of 0 represent? It represents our fixed or startup cost. So if Brody opens his company, he's going to figure out the cost to make 0 dopies. 0 dopies. How much is it going to cost him to make 0 dopies? In other words, what is it going to cost him just to get started? Okay? What's the startup cost? Okay? What? The machine to make the dopies, the materials to make the dopies, the manpower to make the dopies, whatever that is. So we're going to go 100. Here we go. It's C of 0 would be 100 times 0 plus 2,000. So it looks like there's $2,000 in startup cost, and then it's $100 per dopey. But if I make 0 dopies, I don't have to worry about that because that's like this $100 is probably taking into consideration the manpower, like what you're going to pay your employees per hour and so much, and whatever. I don't need to worry about all the stuff. But anyways, what is it going to cost you? $2,000 to start. So you have not even sold a dopey. You've not even produced a dopey. Okay? You haven't sold or produced a dopey yet. You've just started your company. It costs you $2,000. You have to have some seed money. You have some startup money. That's usually when you go to investors and ask, say, I need like $10,000 to start my business. And you'll pay the people back, especially if you have a business that you feel like is worth opening. Because you're like, I'm going to make $10,000 easy and I can pay the investors back. Okay? These are the kind of things you got to think about. Find and interpret what C bar of 10 is. What's C bar stand for? Told you on the previous page. Let's go back to the previous page. What did I say C bar stands for? So average cost. So we want to figure out the average cost if we produced how many dopies? Part B. Done part A. Part B, C bar of 10. We want to find the average cost to produce how many dopies? So if we actually produce 10, I would want to know what's the average cost? I want to know what is that average cost, because then I can determine what I should set the price at if I produce 10. If I'm only going to make 10, right now, Brody's only got enough materials to make 10. He's like, I'm going to make 10, figure out my average cost, and then I'm going to set my price. Because I want to have some margins here. So, and they're always reanalyzing these numbers, because then the more you make, the more you sell. You're like, okay, well, if I've made 10, next month I'm going to make 100. It's kind of like the Lorax, All right, he's cut down a few trees, and he's like, oh my gosh, we can really do good. So he started cutting down more trees, and then he cut down more, and more, and then what happened? He kept expanding his business. He started with this little machine. Have you seen the idea of the Lorax? Okay, it's kind of business principles. It's also other principles too, don't get me wrong. All right,
Scarf.
so we're going to go. Ready? Started with the scarf. All right? So then we got, but every time you expand your business, you're going to have more costs. You got more people you got to pay. You got a bigger building you got to pay for. You got more expenses. So that's why you always want to be calculating this. Okay? So we're going to have C of 10. To figure out average cost, you take your cost to produce 10 of them and divide by the number that you made, and that'll give you your average cost. So average cost is simply taking C of X divided by X. So in this case, C of 10 divided by 10. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay? I keep going back to that page so we can look at the formulas. All right, so C of 10, that's going to be 100 times 10 plus 2,000 divided by 10. So that's going to give me 1,000 plus 2,000 divided by 10, which is 3,000 divided by 10, which would be what?
300.
300. So it's going to cost me about 300 per dopey. $300 per dopey.
Wait, where'd you get the like the 10 or the 100 times 10?
That's C,
That's my equation.
because like
C of X.
this is the equation for that.
Oh,
Got
You
it?
have to use the C.
Yep, we got to use the C equation. Does that make sense so far? So average cost, does it make sense? Doesn't that make sense? Think about it. Average cost, if you take the cost to make 10 of them and divide it by 10, isn't that the average per item? So now we know what it costs per dopey. Now, and people like sometimes I'll have a hard time with what are the units. Well, here we go. C of 10, watch this. This right here is the cost in dollars. So the top is dollars. And then this is the number of items. So this is the number of dopies. So it's dollars per dopey. So we figured out it's $300 a dopey. So you're probably going to want to mark this up pretty good. How much do you think they mark this up? Does anybody know what a typical markup is?
Dude, it kind of depends. I swear there's people that mark up
10%.
like bunch.
Oh, 10% is nothing.
50%.
50, 60% is a typical markup. If you think about it, your shoes, how much do you think those shoes cost?
Probably not.
$5-10 to make, and they're selling them for 100. What do you think the markup is there? 70-80%. I mean, it's wild how much they mark things up.
You got an iPhone.
So you have to decide what that is based on how popular your item is. Like some things you can't mark up as high, and if it's something that's really cheap, obviously you need to sell quantity to make your money. Like if you're selling packs of gum, the markup on, I mean, it costs you $1. It might cost you 50 cents to make a pack of gum. You're only going to mark it up to $1.50 or $2. So the markup's not as steep for items that are not as expensive. The markup's usually higher for the more expensive items. Okay, if it costs more to make, they're going to mark it up more. Okay, find and interpret P of 0 and P of 20. So this is setting the price for based on the number of items you decide to make that month, because you might change the price every month based on supply and demand. Okay, so P of 0, that's little p, so I'm going to use the little p equation here. So I'm going to do P of 0. Little p of 0, if I make 0 dopies, this doesn't make a lot of sense, but we're going to do it. It's 450 minus 15 times 0, which is going to be $450. So if I don't make any, okay, and some people are like, well, what does that mean? What does it mean to have 0 dopies mean? Not real relevant, is it? Like to set the price at $450 doesn't make much sense, does it? Because why?
So you have no dopies.
You have no dopies. Yeah, you have no dopies for $450. Okay? So what it's saying is if there's, yeah, it doesn't really, so P of 0, does P of 0 really make much sense? No, you want to at least produce some dopies. So there's not really, but P of 20 now, that makes sense. If I make 20 dopies, what should I set the price for that month? Okay, 450 minus 15 times 20. 15 times 20 is 150, correct? Is that right? No, that's 300.
Yeah.
Is that 300?
Yeah.
And then the price would be 150.
Yeah.
So if you make 20 dopies, you should set the price at $150. Now, I don't know how this equation came about. You don't have to worry about that. Somebody did some kind of, like they did a focus group and they determined based on demographics and where you live and popularity of the item you're selling and you know, the time of year matters, especially if you're selling like outdoor equipment or indoor equipment. So, you know, you don't sell Christmas stuff in the summer. So you might still have Christmas stuff on the shelf. Like you go to some of these niche stores like the Nest or whatever, they might still have Christmas stuff out, but they're going to set the price really low in the summer because they're just not going to move those items. So there's always that analyzing you have to do. And then finally, P of X equal to 0. What about if the price is equal to 0? What about if I set the price equal to 0?
450 minus 15x is equal to 0.
So if I set the price equal to 0, so I go 450 minus 15x is equal to 0. Okay, so in other words, when should I just give away dopies?
When they're-
I'd say never. Okay, all right, when should they be free? 15x, and if I divide both sides by 15, what do you get x to be? 30? So we're saying that we really probably don't want to make 30 dopies. It's probably this function's saying it doesn't make sense to make a lot of dopies because the supply and demand, there's not a demand for 30 dopies per month. You're going to end up just having these. So just doesn't make much sense. All right, now this is probably the most important stuff here. E, F, and G. Okay? Some of these questions don't even really, you know, when I say the price is equal to 0, and if you could look here, what was that? So this means that if dopies were given away for free, the retailer would only be able to move 30 of them.
Okay.
Okay? There's just not that big of a demand for them. They're not that popular. It's like the Zune. You couldn't give Zunes away right now. I'd give it to you, be like, what am I going to do with this thing? Okay? It's obsolete kind of thing.
The dopies are obsolete.
They're pretty obsolete. At 0, if you sold, there means no dopies are sold if the price is $450. So see, if the price is $450, how many dopies are you going to move? It's not that we produce 0 dopies, it's just how many are we going to sell?
Isn't that when you sell no dopies? It's
So if you sell no dopies, what was the price set at?
450.
So why are you selling no dopies?
Because
It's too high. Nobody's going to buy them if you sell them for that price. So this price function is helping you determine what's the best price. What's the price point that's going to move the most? This is not how many you produce. This is like price is based on how many you sell. So if you sold 0 dopies, the price was too high. If you want to move 20 of them, sell them for $150. If you want to move 30 of them, you got to give them away. Okay? So that's kind of what this means. All right, then finally we go back to, all right, E. Find and simplify the expressions for revenue. All right, you have to memorize this. Revenue. Okay, how do I calculate revenue? You need to know how to calculate, and then find and simplify the profit function. So I'm going to do part E here. Part E, let's start with revenue. What is the equation I told you on the previous page to memorize for revenue? No, that's profit. We'll get to that one in a second. What's the revenue equation? Go back and look at the previous page.
X times
It's X, it's the number of items you produce times the what? The price. Okay? All right, so if you take revenue, how much money you're bringing in, it's how many you sell times the price you set. So I'm going to take the revenue function and I'm going to take X times P of X. What's P of X in this problem? Nope, what's P of X? Little p.
Oh, wait a minute.
450 minus 15X. Do you see it?
But if we already solved for that, like,
Doesn't matter.
can
I
we use that?
like where? What do you
Like,
mean?
since, like, we're finding R of 0, like, could we just...
I haven't found R of 0 yet.
No, but, like, since we found P of X, that is equal to 0, like, would that be the same, like, can you just use that since you used it?
Since you took P of 0 on that one, you could take that P of 0, which was 450, and then multiply it by 0, which 450 times 0 would just be 0. Obviously, if
Does
you...
that make sense, though, like? would-
It does, but I might ask you to do multiple values. So I'd actually figure out and then you need the generic equation for R of X, because without the R of X equation, you can't figure out the profit equation, and you won't be able to find the break-even point. So R of X is just going to be X times the price. The price equation is 450 minus what? What was it? 450 minus 15X? So my revenue equation, you have to find this equation. So R of X is just going to be equal to 450X minus 15X squared. There it is. Circle that you need that equation. So now you can find the revenue at any value. You can find the revenue for 0. You can find the revenue for 1 dopey, the revenue for 2 dopies. I distributed. Okay? So now I could find the revenue based on any number of dopies that I sold. I could figure out what the revenue is if I sold 22 dopies. I could figure out the revenue if I sold 15 dopies. Because this is price times the number of items you sell. That should just logically make sense. Set the price, multiply by X, you figure out how much money you make. What's profit, though? Go to the profit equation from the previous page. How do I calculate profit? You're going to have to take R minus C of X. You take revenue minus cost. And if you don't memorize these equations, and I want you to know, this is in every chapter. Okay? I have to teach this every chapter with a different function. Now, the good news is the equations don't change. They're the same every chapter. So once you learn this, you learn it for chapter 1. It's the same for chapter 2. It's the same for chapter 3, just different equations. Okay, P of X. So I'm going to go revenue minus cost. Do we have the revenue equation?
Yeah.
Do you see why you needed to get that first?
Yeah.
So we needed to actually calculate what the revenue equation is. So we got P of X is going to be equal to revenue equation, which is 450X minus 15X squared minus the cost equation. What was the cost equation? 100X plus 2,000. Barely had enough room there. Let's see, can I get this moved? So it'd be R of X minus C of X minus the cost, which was what, 100X minus, was it plus 2,000? You eating all my donuts and you're laughing and you're making me
No, there's
mad.
still some in there, I think.
P of X. All right, so now you simplify this because the direction said simplify. So what do you got to distribute? The negative. So you're going to have 450X minus 15X squared plus 100X, because I got to distribute that negative, minus 2,000. So my profit equation will be, and I'm going to put it in descending order. I'm going to go with the highest power first. What's the highest power? Negative 15X squared. I have some like terms. What's 450 plus 100? 550X minus 2,000. So this equation,
Yeah, I thought it was a negative.
what part's negative?
100.
Oh yeah, sorry, I did do that wrong.
Shoot.
My bust.
Wait, why'd you just cross over?
Because I forgot to distribute the negative to 100. It's supposed to be minus 100X, not plus 100X.
Okay.
You see that, right?
No, I see that, but why's the 15X squared just crossed?
All right,
Because we're-
because I had to erase the work. So I'm going to write it down here, negative 15X squared. Got it. What's 450 minus 100? 350
Could be, yeah.
minus 2,000. So there's my profit equation. Right there. That will calculate profit. And then if I'm asked to do anything with it, all right, part G is probably the most important question you ask yourself in any business. When the profit equals what? All right, ready? I'm going to write what this means. This is called the break-even point.
Yeah, we did do that.
Oh, we didn't do F? We'll do F and G at the same time. So letter F is just actually using revenue and profit equations that you just found. So letter F, I'll do that in red. They want to know the revenue at 0 items. Well, obviously, if we sell 0 items, what's going to be our revenue? We're not going to make money. We got to sell something to make money. So, and if you look at the revenue equation, so yes, that's where you asked, Aubrey, if I could have just took P of 0 times 0, which would obviously be 0. So 450 times 0 minus 15 times 0 squared, obviously is going to be 0. If you sell 0 items, you're going to make $0. So there's going to be no revenue. But, and the flip side, if you do a profit of 0, you're actually going to be in the red, is what they call it in the business. You want your business to operate in the black. So profit, you would type into this equation. And what's going to happen, and this will make total sense, here's my profit equation. It'd be negative 15 times 0 squared plus 350 times what? 0 minus 2,000. What's my profit going to be? Negative 2,000. Wasn't that my fixed costs? So if I don't sell any dopies, have I covered my costs? So I'm 2,000 in the hole to start with. So until you start selling dopies, you're not covering your fixed costs that we figured out in Part A, which was originally. Okay?
Should we tell him it's Pi Day?
He got one.
No.
Yeah. Break-even point. Break-even point is how many dopies you're going to have to sell to cover that $2,000. So the break-even point is where profit is equal to 0. So I'm going to take my profit equation. Ready? Now this is going to require some work. Here we go. Take the profit equation right here. I'm going to set it equal to what? 0. So I'm going to take the negative 15x squared plus 350x minus 2,000 and set it equal to 0. All right, what can we factor out of this? It does factor. I bet you can factor out a negative 15. I bet 15 goes into all these. Can somebody tell me what 350 divided by 15 is? You can use a calculator.
Wait, will we take a negative 15?
I would take a negative 15 out, absolutely. So what are you going to get? You're going to get an x squared. What's 350?
23 and 1/3.
So it'd be 23. So it'd be minus 23x. And then plus what? You said 2,000 divided by 15 is what?
133.3.
Oh, whoa. So 2,000 is not divisible by 15?
It's got.
Neither was.
Neither was.
Yeah, neither was
It was
250.
0.33.
It wasn't?
Well, would you be?
Oh, we messed up.
So then we can't take out a negative 15. What do we got to take out?
5.
We got to take out a negative 5. So 15 doesn't work. We got to get what we can actually take out. So negative 5. So I would have definitely tried the negative 15 first, prayed that it came out. But if it doesn't, then you try something else. So negative 5. So that's going to give me 3x squared. Is everybody good with that? Minus, what's 350 divided by 5? 70? Yeah, that's good. 70x. And then plus, stop it. Why is it doing that?
400.
Plus 400, thank you. Plus 400 is equal to 0. Now, does the negative 5 matter? No, because if you set it equal to 0, it's not going to give you a solution, is it? So really, do you even need to worry about the negative 5? Because it doesn't have a variable in it. But this right here you got to worry about, and we got to remember how to do Knudsen method. Do you remember how to slide and glide?
Yeah, but I don't.
I do have the factor sheets today. I did get factor sheets if you need it. All right, here's what you do. If you need a factor sheet, grab one. She'll just pass them around. Okay, here's what you do. You slide the 3. This is a review from, just go ask one of the 9th graders. That's what they're doing right now. If you forget how to slide and glide, probably don't want to go ask a 9th grader, but maybe you'll just shock them. Be like, hey, can you show me how to slide and glide? I forgot. You're not going to forget because I'm going to show you right now. Remember what you do? You slide the what? 3. So you get an x squared. It's on that sheet. Minus 70x plus 1,200. Then what you do is then you find the factors of 1,200 that'll add up to give you 70. It's pretty easy. Just get rid of the zeros. What are the factors of 12 that'll add up to give you 7? 3 and 4. So it's not going to be 3 and 4. It's going to be 30 and 40. So it's going to be x minus 30 and then x minus 40. Is that okay? Now, if you have a hard time doing that, you can go to your calculator to y equals and type 1200 over x. And then go to the table and look at the list of the factors for 1200. Okay? But this is not, this is college algebra, so you can do that. I'm not going to tell you to do that, but that's up to you. What did we slide? So what do we got to do?
Divide by 3.
Don't forget to divide by that 3. So that's going to give me x minus 10. And 40 thirds will not reduce, will it? So then you glide that 3 out front. So you have 3x minus 40. So now you set each one of these equal to what? 0. So I'm going to get one place where you could break even is if you sold how many dopies? 10. Now some people are like, why is there 2 answers? Because based on how many dopies will pick what you set your price at. Because it changes what you set your price at. So your break even points could be at different places. So there's 2 places where you could break even. All right, and then this will be, if you add 40 divide by 3, you would get what? 40 thirds. So what you would do is you would want to, everything between 10 and 40 thirds is going to be where you actually make money. You want to sell at least how many? You're going to want at least to sell 10, right? And then 40 thirds, which is 3 goes into 40 how many times? Like 13 times. So you're going to want to sell between 10 and 13 dopies. Your business is not a very profitable business because only between 10 and 13 dopies are you going to make money, actually. Yeah, it's a pretty bad deal. It's not a great business.
But
You might-
if it was iPods.
If it was iPods, maybe things would be different.
Wait, so what are dopies again? Like,
Some kind of media player like MP3 players.
Remember when he's on our test marks?
100%.
Dude, this took us all hour.
That's to teach. Now, the time you do it yourself, it won't take that long. You could rip through this in about 10 minutes.
So it would take me 3 days.
If you don't study, you're right. It will take you 3 days. If you study, it'll take you 10 minutes.
so are we gonna get through
Fun,
1.6
bro.
and 1.7 on Monday?
No, we're going to have to move the test to Wednesday, so.
Are you moving the due date for all this stuff?
Mhm.
Wednesday too?
Good.
Yeah.
So will that push back all of our tests and they won't be on Fridays anymore?
No, I'll just keep them on Fridays and we'll just use some extra days.
Okay.
We'll just have to
Missing that
find
first 2
more.
days really hurt us. All right, that is 1.5. Okay, real quick, I'll do one of those last problems. Actually, I decided that I'm not going to, on your test, do ones because not everybody's going to. I'm just going to do one like A. So I'm not going to do a B or a C where you have a root or a fraction in it. There's just no point unless you take calculus. So you can learn how to do it in calculus. It's pretty complicated. So what I'll do is I'll do one on Monday before the test where it's another polynomial where it's like that, and I'll use that difference quotient again. Now, here's what I'd like to do, though. It's like you to go to the textbook, and I'm going to tell you some of these problems you got to practice. All right? And if you don't practice them, you're not going to get them. Okay? Go to section 1.5. You need to practice these this weekend. And I will change the due dates today, so that'll be done for you.
I'm kind of glad you did that, Morris. I got a chem test Tuesday, too. So
Good. That works out well.
that works great.
All right. So if you go to section 1.5, is everybody in section 1.5?
Yep,
Okay. Which is what page again?
84.
Okay. So everybody go to page 84. All right. So go to the homework part. All right, here we go. 1.5 exercises on page 84. I've already assigned some of those problems where you have to do all that jazz to. You need to go to the word problems. Then at the bottom, I use almost these exact word problems every year. Okay? So, down at the bottom, 46 through 50. You've got Sasquatch t-shirts. You've got all natural certified free trade organic Sasquatch tonic. You've got, they just talk about these generic items that you sell. I mean, they're just making up these fictitious businesses. So this would be a great place if you like lived in the mountains of North Carolina where they still believe there's Bigfoot.
Wait, which one's the
Sasquatch is Bigfoot, if you've never heard of that.
You assigned from this.
Okay?
Bigfoot.
Huh?
Like,
That was what you typed to me, remember?
Sasquatch.
was it? I thought that was 1.4.
Was it?
I'm pretty sure.
Was it 1.4?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay, yeah, that was. So page 84. Go to page 84. Go page 84. So here's your bookwork. That's right. That was 1.3. So I'm just going to select a couple. Let's do on section page 84, circle 3 and 5. 3 and 5, that's good enough. Circle, let's go with 13 and 15. And you have to do all those bullet points. Okay, 13 and 15. And then I said I'd do one of these different quotients. Let's do number 25. 25, that's good enough. And then finally, 46 through 49. By the test, I would have completed all those because I guarantee you one of my test questions is going to be like that. The Mountain Thunder lemonade at the junior lemonade stand, which Carter ran as a kid. In his
46 through 49?
46 to 49.
We don't have to do 50?
No, us 50's a little different.
Don't do 52.
No, that's alright.
You can do 50 if you want.
So like, with the questions, with all the bullet points, like how many of those are you gonna put on the test?
I do typically, so those bullet point questions, I do typically one of each, where you have equations and you have to do some bullet point stuff for it. Okay?
This is about to take an hour.
All those? No, not even close.
No, you don't.
How you doing, man?
Morris. They're taking an hour.
Taking an hour, yeah.
They're only asking you the 6 things. You can rip through those in 5 minutes.
Oh my goodness.
First time it'll probably take you 10. Second time it'll take you 5.
Yeah, no.
It gets pretty repetitive.
Morris, bro.